weird. I was like, oh my God, I'm weird. So then I started to masturbate. Like he got a vibrator at one point, which is my first vibrator. And I was like, great, he's going to go to sleep and I'm going to like figure out
get off
to watch. And at some point he caught me and like, I don't think he was bothered that I was watching porn. I think he was bothered what I was watching in porn and feeling just very intimidated. Then our whole relationship became about that, right? Like,
girl, stop talking. All the shit that people are thinking but not saying. I'm not even like drunk. I've just been like drinking. Does my podcast offend you? Men, if you're listening, I apologize in advance. Women, hey bitches, are you ready? Are you still talking? Girl, stop talking. Monday, bitches. I am here today with a guest. If you are watching, you can see we have Hayden here. I'm not going to do this whole long intro because we just talked about how much I dislike doing them, but I'll just say from my perspective, Hayden is like the girlfriend gossip queen on Instagram. She like posts everything from sexuality, being comfortable in your own skin, but then she's this badass like businesswoman. She's a mom, a new mom. I mean, you've been a mom, but you're also a new mom. There's a there's a lot going on there. So Hayden, thank you so much for coming on. I am like so excited to have you here. I know we've talked about this for a while, so it's really awesome. And why don't you just tell the people, like, say hello and tell them who you are?
Yeah, absolutely. So you're right. We've been talking about doing this for a long time. I obviously love you and have been following your brand for a very long time. And we've always just had synergy and get along and we just get it. And I always like that we can talk about so many different topics and connecting them as moms, business owners, talking about sexuality, and then also just like how we approach life, right? Like all the different scenarios and things that pop up, like we very much jive on a lot of that stuff. So yes, my name is Hayden Merryn on, Instagram and all the things, but Hayden Van Hulzen. I am a business owner. I am a mom. I am a significant other, all the things. I have 5 kids in our blended family, so it's busy all of the time.
Good for you, girl.
And she's right. I just had a baby. I mean, I didn't just have her. I mean, she's going to be 15 months, but it feels like I just had her because it goes so fast.
I mean, you're in the thick of it still, so...
It's like we're like doing sophomore year with the eldest, like he's 15 and then I'm like changing diapers for 15 months and then we've got like everything in between at middle school, and so it's always busy. There's always something going on, and I feel like there's just a lot of seasons of a person, right? And you've definitely lived through a lot of my seasons, just like I lived through yours, and I appreciate it. I love watching people go through those. So, but that's who I am.
Yay! Yeah. Okay. I love that you said that and kind of just went into the seasons. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk a lot about today. So normally when I have guests on, I do like a how we met segment. And it's like funny because you're kind of like my like online like internet friend, right? This is actually the first like face-to-face meeting we've ever done.
I think so. Past each other, like I think we've been in similar spaces, like we've because I feel like we've seen each other out before, like in the previous chapter it was like knew who we were but like never actually.
And we're connected through a lot of similar people, like some of the businesses you work with. I've been like, I was friends with those people, not that I'm not anymore, but we were friends, and like you said, just in a different time of life and stuff like that. So to keep this part of like this little tradition that I wanted to do, I was like, okay, how did we meet? And I'm like, I know that I started following her on Instagram. So I literally went through our DMs and I scrolled all the way back.
That is a good like reporter journalist move. Like, I'm going to find out when this happened.
Yeah, I'm like, there's always a story there. That's why I like this segment.
Was it like 2018?
Yes, it was.
Okay, you're like 2018.
That's impressive, honestly, because I had no idea. I knew it had been a while, but I wasn't sure when it was. So I scrolled all the way back and I looked through our messages. The first DM you responded to me, it was me responding to one of your stories. It's not there, so I'm not sure, but I was just going to read it to you really quick. So I say, LOL, the realest answer ever I've heard, or the realest answer I've ever heard. I feel this so much. And she's like, laugh my ass off, girl. It's so true. Then my response was, I dropped 17 pounds in a month trying to get this last 10 off the right way, though. So I wanted to share this because this was August 21st, 2018. This time in my life, I had actually left a really crazy, toxic, abusive relationship. So I'm assuming the
Which
response,
divorces.
yes, it was
Going through
some,
divorce and
yes. So, and I remember the fact that I said I lost 17 pounds in 1 month. I remember that because of that stress and that relationship that I was going through, it was the first time I ever really experienced like anxiety, but I didn't know that it was anxiety. It was like almost showing up like symptoms of depression, but it was like this overwhelming feeling. And I never thought that I had had anxiety or experienced it before. And I think it's just like talking about these seasons. And that was kind of like, from what I saw, like the start of your confidence era and like coming through post the breakdown.
yeah.
So I kind of just wanted to start there. Like, I think because like you said, like I'm going through all these pictures in my head of like the stuff you were going through and then coming out of that and all the like very explicit, like body loving positivity that came
Oh, yeah.
from that and the sex appeal and all of that. So why don't you kind of share a little bit of that story if you're comfortable so that we can
Yeah. And
start from
actually,
there?
I'm happy that we're diving into this because I feel like I've been interviewed on so many different occasions and we've touched on like the whys behind my divorce, right? Like what happened in my divorce, who I was married to, right? Like I got married young. I was married for
Yeah.
9 years. We were together for 9 years. I was 18 when I met him. Like all that stuff got talked about. What didn't get talked about was the why of this like coming out, right? And it's actually
Yeah.
it is a fun topic when I think back on it because there was a lot of things that led to me kind of coming out and putting myself out there and becoming this almost like persona for myself. And I got a lot of backlash for it, but I had a lot of fun with it at the time. Like I look back on it and I cringe a little bit now seeing it because it's hard to envision myself there now at 35. But like
Yeah.
at that time, like I had a blast. I put myself in rooms that other people dreamed of being in because I was just putting myself out there in such a real way and owning something that I was gifted in some capacity and like running with it. And so, during my divorce and even just the relationship itself, I always felt like I was very stifled by that person and he was
Hmm.
incredibly jealous, still jealous to this day. Like he just like wanted to keep me in a box and
Yeah.
he didn't want me to be around other people. Even like when I would be in like a bikini, he'd be like, who's that for? And like he was just very weird about stuff. And so I spent a
Yeah.
lot of like my 20s when I like probably was like the best version of myself. I was trying to like model and things like that. And it just became so impossible to do. And I missed out on a lot of really big opportunities. Like I got offered New York Fashion Week and Milan and like all these big things
Oh,
where I was
oh my God, that's wild.
yeah, I was with Elite Model Management.
Okay.
I was like a pretty decent sized model in Chicago and, modeled for Chanel and Acris and like Escada, like all these big brands and
Hmm.
really was going somewhere. And like some of the people that I actually know that I modeled with, like are famous models now, which is so funny. Like
That's
Charlie
amazing.
Kloss was signed with my agency. There was another girl that I know, like Grace Hartzell, who's like very famous now. And it's just funny because like those are people I modeled with like a long
Yeah.
time. So regardless of all of that, once I started to kind of see that like this person was going to keep me down. This person was always going to keep me caged in. I had this like horrible moment where like I woke up one day and was like, this cannot be my life. Like
Yeah.
this can't be it for me. And this is where my first onset of like anxiety came in, where I was like
Hmm.
blacking out from this fear of like the cage of what the confines of like being married was and being married to a person like that, not married in
Yeah.
general.
Yeah.
And so after I finally left, I think there was a combination of just like the loss of not having my son around all the time, right? Like you lose all of that time with your son to gain your freedom. And so
Yeah.
like 50% of my time I was so sad. I was like, my son's not here. Like, what am I supposed to do with myself? My ex had taken everything out of our house. Like, I didn't have a television. I had a bed on the floor. Like, I had nothing to do. And so I like started to like be like, well, now I guess I can go make friends and like find myself. And I remember I literally had to ask my father to help me buy a pair of shoes and a dress so I could go to the club, just so I could go start making friends. And
Yeah.
I started to just like put myself out there, and it was amazing how many people noticed me. And it's so sad to say this now as a person who's like so confident and would never ever tell another woman that that's how they should feel. But like,
Mhm.
I had been so kept from everybody that I didn't even realize that I was noticeable. And
Yeah. It's amazing, really quick. It's
yeah,
amazing. Like, not only did he take, like all of the physical things from you, but they also like break you down to a point where you don't think about those things about yourself. So,
so
like,
weird.
what was the turning point for you when you left that relationship and then decided, like, okay, like, how do I get myself back? Like, how did you kind of start that journey?
So this is kind of where it kind of pivots into, I start going out, I start being noticed, and I start to realize like there's power in it, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're being noticed. Oh, well, you can skip the line and you can go inside. And it's like, I can skip the line. And you're like, you can skip
Yeah.
the line. And like, oh, you can meet this person. Like, I remember there was like some celebrities that were starting to come into town, and like they would invite me to like be at their tables. And I was like, oh my God. Like, at the time I was so enamored with this. Like, a
Right.
celebrity would talk to me. Like, and I just had such low self-worth that I think I was so excited about all this stuff. But what happens with stuff like this is when you're naive, you're very quick to be a victim of people who are ready to prey on a person like that. And so
Oh, for sure.
I took a lot of hits. I mean, very
Yeah.
early on by people who were preying on my goodness, preying on my
Mhm.
naivete. And each time that someone broke me, I learned something. And it started to harden me, and I had a lot of like heartbreak, or being misled, whether it be by friends or even like short-lived relationships or just
Mhm.
being used. And I think I just had this like awakening where I was like, I'm I am this. Like, I don't need somebody else to tell me that this is who I am. Like, I am this, and I'm going to own this, and I'm going to like really revel in this expectation that people have of me, and I'm actually going to hide in plain sight behind this, you know, archetypal male fantasy that they're projecting onto me anyway. They don't know I'm smart, they don't know I'm capable, but what I am
Yeah.
going to do is I'm going to give them what they need, and I'm going to be the one to take advantage. And I'm going to find myself in those rooms, and I'm going to do business, and I'm going to grow, and I'm never going to lose myself anymore. And I'm never going to let anybody dictate my self-worth ever again, right? I'm never going to let somebody box me in, but I'm also never going to let somebody take advantage. And thus, Hayden
Mhm.
Merryn was born. And I remember the first photo shoot I did where I was like, I'm going to own this. Like, I am sexual, and it's
Yeah.
okay that I'm sexual, and I am allowed to embrace my femininity, and I'm allowed to find myself beautiful. I don't have to be everyone's cup of tea. I can find myself beautiful, and I can revel in all of the things that make me who I am, and I can put it out there. And I'm young only once, so like, I'm going to live this up, and I'm going to experience it.
Yes.
If I died today, would I be able to say I lived a life worth living? And that was what I was seeking. And so with
Yeah.
50% of the time I was with my son, I was with my son. I was head down. I used to tell people, I'm like, don't call me, don't text me. I don't have a sitter. I'm not that person. Like, I was with him. And then like
Mhm.
50% of the other time I was building this person that actually had a life worth living. Like, prior to that, 9 years of marriage, no vacations, no trips, always
Yeah.
broke. I was like, I am going to do something with this time. And
Yeah.
so that was definitely my pivot. And the first picture I posted, I took pictures with Bird Photos, who he takes pictures of the club. And I took like my first like lingerie shoot photos and
Uh-huh.
posted them, and people went crazy. They were like, what is happening? And I
They're
was
like,
like,
"Who is this girl?"
built this.
That's
So
so funny.
it was a big deal. And I remember the first time I posted it, I was like, oh my God, I'm so nervous. And I remember when it was like, like the likes were rolling in, and I was like, oh my God, like I was having like such anxiety about
Yeah.
it. People were like, what are you doing? Like, this isn't you. And I was like, maybe it is. Maybe
Yeah. You
this is,
don't know. How would we know?
yeah.
I think it's so I find like a lot of similarities in our stories because I went through very same but different. I had this crazy toxic relationship, but I had that picture moment, that moment where I was like, I was always told in my relationship, like, oh, you just do that for attention. Like, you're just doing that because you want attention. Like, it was about all this, you want attention. And well, first of all, like, who doesn't?
Yeah. But
You know?
it's less about attention. It's like, what does the attention get me? Because to me, like, do we really care about the attention? No, but the volume of the numbers of what attention can be monetized to be,
Yeah.
that's something.
Yeah.
And I have
I
learned
think
very quickly about what that can entail.
I think where I was in that moment was like I did want the attention because I was out of the relationship. It was very like lots of PTSD and crazy shit that went down. And so it was like a very depressing moment. And so for me, for a little bit of time, I was like living off of that attention. But then it was also kind of like that, like, fuck you of like, I'm going to do what I want. Like you said, like, I'm going to step into my power. I know you were trying to hold this down, but like, we're done. You
Yep.
know what I mean?
Oh, totally. And that I can absolutely agree with. I think that there had to be a moment where I was just excited to embrace the fact that I was going to put myself out there to really be seen as I wanted to be seen, not how everyone else was telling me to be seen. And you're
Yeah.
right. And like the attention that came from that for being seen for who I wanted to be at that moment, whatever I decided that was, that it was up to me and completely dictated by me within my power, that does feel good. Because you're like, I'm
Yeah.
going to put myself out here however I want. And also, we were kind of in the age of like, influence. Like I've lost a lot of followers since then, but there was a time where like I had a lot of followers. Like I grew very quickly on TikTok. I had over 250,000 followers. You know, even Instagram at one point I think I hit
Yeah.
50,000. Like now I've kind of like mellowed out, so people are like, "Oh, she's not fun anymore." But but regardless, there was a time where I was big and I had a lot of access. And I really, I mean, everybody who exists that you can think of was accessible. And that was a really cool feeling. And it turned into a lot of really great opportunities for me. And I don't regret it at all.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's like the beauty of it is you literally took the situation that you were in that was so difficult and you not only like gave yourself a rebrand, if you
Yeah.
will, but you took that and be like, who do I want to be? Like now I have this moment where I can be myself and what does that mean exactly? And then through that you found greatness and opportunity, which has helped, I'm sure, in other ways, like financially, and you're able to like monetize off of, I mean, partly off of your looks, but I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's like you're in control of what you want to post and what you want to bring to the table. And if that's going to put you in this position where you can make money from that, I don't think that there's anything wrong with that, you
No,
know?
yeah, no, absolutely not. And you know what? Like being able to embrace your positive qualities and own your own beauty, whatever it is that makes you beautiful, like I don't think that that's a negative thing. It's a gift.
No.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I've showed pictures of myself when I was in middle school and girl, let me tell you I was not a cute one. Like glasses, crooked teeth, like I have built myself into this person. Like this shit didn't come cheap. And you know what? There's no harm in that. Like this is what we put out there for the world, right? Like this is
Yeah.
their first impression of us, and like whoever that we want to be and try on for size. Like been a lot of different shades of this person. I look at older versions of myself, and although they don't look a ton different, maybe you know, there's just things about her and who she was in that chapter that I don't do now. But I'm like, girl, you know what? You do you. You get it.
You are getting it. You living it. Okay, so if to the people that are listening, like if they're finding themselves kind of in this situation where they're like feeling a little lost or like trying to feel more confident, like what is there something that you could kind of give them, like I don't want to say like a tip, maybe like some advice on like what is like the most basic level, like the starting point to like start feeling the confidence like within yourself?
You know, I actually do get this question a lot just from women, right? They come to me
Yeah.
and I forget sometimes when we're living it that other women are watching us wishing they could do the same. It's like a
Yeah.
vicarious thing. But I always tell people I'm like with one life, right? With this life that we're given, this gift that every day that we wake up, why would you want to wake up as anyone other than exactly who you are? And I always will choose being hated for who I am not, basically,
Yeah.
than to be basically out here living some falsehood. Uh, I never ever hated who I am, I should say. I just never ever want to be put in a situation where I'm I've been in that mode, right? Where I'm seeking so hard to be loved for a person that people are telling me to be, and just how dissatisfying that is. Like,
Yeah.
when you're in that situation where you're like, wow, not only do I have to work hard to put on this front to be this person so that I could please people I don't even like, right? Because ultimately, anyone who's asking you to be anything other than who you are, they're not. They're not your people. And
Yeah.
it came with a lot of backlash. Like when I started to become myself, I got so like my ex-husband and his whole family, they used to make fun of me all the time. And it's so funny now. They're like, "Oh, shit.
Girl, it's crazy how people come
Shit."
out of the literal woodwork to tell you like what you're doing is so wrong,
Oh yeah.
even when like they're blocked. Like they're either blocked or they blocked you, but
Yeah.
then for some reason they still know everything you're doing.
All the time, even to this day. Like it's so weird. Like my ex-husband at one point, told me, he was like, oh yeah, they still watch your stuff and this and that. And I was like, I honestly couldn't tell you anything about your family. Like after I left you, like I never looked again. And he's like,
Yeah.
really? Like my son was like, oh yeah. Oh, wow, that's
Oh,
fun
we
effect.
got some fireworks going on.
Must have thing. My computer decided. Um, my son will like tell me like, oh, so and so had a baby, and I'm like, man, like she went through a whole pregnancy, and I didn't even know oh, by the way, and it's to a new guy, so she's been divorced and pregnant. My son was like telling me, I was like, oh, I had no idea. Good for her, whatever.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, they're like, did you see Hayden? She got her lips done. I'm like,
Yeah.
to have a life like that must be boring, but I'm glad you're watching. Keep tuning in.
No, literally. Seriously. I mean, I get the same. It's been a lot less drama more recently, which I'm grateful for, obviously, because
Kind
it's
of
like,
filtered it out. I'm like, at this,
yeah,
I'm like, my son's been living with me for several years, just me. He barely even sees
yeah,
his dad now. Like that whole family, like we don't see them. I think he once in a while he'll take them there on like a holiday. Like, be blessed, be blessed.
yes,
And like
yeah.
I live a life that they hate, right? Like I'm out here in Snobsdale in my
Oh,
house.
I'm so triggered.
Well,
I'm so, no, I'm so triggered because I feel the same way. It's like, you get judged because of this persona you're putting online, even though it just is like you being you. And it's like also living in your happiest moments.
oh yeah.
And don't get me wrong. And I feel like you do the same. Like I try to keep my platform like very vulnerable and
Oh,
real. So like a lot of the things that are going on, like people know, like it's not just like the best times of my life. Like
no,
I try
it's not
to,
real. It's not real.
exactly. And I try to post those things too, but it's like the backlash from the haters, the literal haters. It's like, I don't know. It's just so crazy to me. It's hard for me to wrap my head around like why you're so interested.
Thank God we can't, because if we could, we'd be as miserable as them. That's the difference. Like,
Yeah.
I don't have time to think about them. But people like that, they have time, and miserable people do, right? A lot of those people, they're exactly where we left them. They're making the same
Yeah.
kind of money, living in the same place, the same misery, bitching about the same stuff. And it's like, I'm not that way. If I don't like something, I change it. If I want something to be, different in my life, I go after it. Like I'm not the sit around and watch other people do things I wish I could be doing and pretend like it's somehow me like living in a better moment. Anybody who is a hater is straight up just jealous. Like there is
Yeah.
no real hatred that comes from anything other than jealousy, because people who aren't jealous, they're busy living their lives. Like I see people who are doing better than me, and I'm like, good for them. That's awesome. I should figure that out. Like I should try and do
Yeah.
that for me. That's the difference. And that's why people like us end up succeeding and they stay stuck in their same spot, because they can't get out of their own way and admit to themselves and have enough self-awareness that they're the problem, that they're the issue.
Yes, sister. I couldn't have said it any better myself. Oh God, that was like, I literally feel like we've already talked for like an hour and I'm like,
No, we knocked it
wow.
all out.
I know. I think we have like the same energy. We're just like, go, go, go. I feel like we've covered so much already, but it's honestly so beautiful. I want to like switch up a little bit and kind of, we talked about, creating confidence coming from past relationships, like honing into being yourself and what that looks like. But this is a sex and dating show.
Get into it.
Yes. So I kind of want to go a little bit in that direction.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that coming out of this, marriage that wasn't serving you and going into other relationships was probably difficult.
It was weird. It was a weird time.
So I think we should like kind of touch on that a little bit. Like,
Yeah, let's touch
what
over.
what was that?
No, let's touch all over.
Yes. Let's slide right into that slowly.
Slide right into that. So yeah, overview wise, when you're married to someone, and keep in mind, I met him at 18, so I wasn't like incredibly experienced, and we had a lot of issues just because of my preferences. Obviously, if you've seen my son, and you can assume my ex-husband is a white man, and obviously my preferences are more of what my current partner to this day is, who is a black man. And so there was some, things from a pornographic standpoint that I would watch on my me time when things were just not working out. And
I love that you're really just beating around the bush.
Became an issue. Well, it's so funny. So like, obviously, like, I mean, I like everything. I do. I mean, I've even dated women. I'll put it out there. I've dated women before. I've tried it on for size. I'm definitely like I don't consider myself really bisexual. I mean, I am, because I can date women, but
it's a spectrum.
It's a spectrum. I always say it's a percentage scale, right? Like there was a time in my life where I was kind of 50-50, right? Then I kind of went through a period where I was like, no, it's more 80-20. I think
I like that.
Like 20% women, because women are beautiful. I love them. Like I find women sexy. Like that is just who I am. And I've always been this way. Like I am turned on by the idea of women. But I prefer men, and there's like a threshold of like how far I'm willing to go when it comes to the woman stuff, even though I've gone that far and tried. After my marriage, I was like, I'm trying all this out.
You're like, well, I'm not taking no for an answer.
Like I had a girl ask me out, and I was like, yeah.
Okay, let's go.
Try that out for a little bit. Try that out a few times, give it a go.
Okay, so you were watching basically the porn that you were watching. I'm assuming your husband or your ex, but husband at the time.
I was watching a fair amount of interracial porn privately to masturbate, because I was not enjoying. He was the kind of partner, which I think you and I actually talked about this. He was the kind of partner that I was like not orgasming with. Like I just genuinely didn't believe that orgasms were a regular thing for sex. I was like, oh, you just if you get really, really lucky one day. And even when I thought of an orgasm, it wasn't.
Been there, girl. I literally say, I'm like, I had a whole ass baby before I had an orgasm, so I get it.
Sad for us. I'm so sad for the life we lived, but like literally. And this is the kind of man that even since then has like called and been like, and I'm so good in bed. Like it's just really sad that you just wouldn't let me do what I needed to do and things like that. And I'm like, I just think like we were just not compatible. Like it wasn't a thing. Like,
or you weren't comfortable. Like to me, that's the first thing that I think of is you clearly weren't comfortable to be vulnerable in those settings.
And it's hard with a person who's literally telling you like it's you all the time. Like I would be doing something sexually that I needed maybe to orgasm, or I was trying to like configure myself, or I'd move myself in a certain way, and he would quite literally tell me I was weird and that other girls didn't do that. And like looking back on that is like, well, surprisingly, I'm the girl that's here right now. And so like if I need this, like how I would maneuver.
Talk about shaming. Yeah, damn.
God, my whole relationship, and I used to feel so weird. I was like, oh my God, I'm weird. So then I started to masturbate. Like he got a vibrator at one point, which is my first vibrator. And I was like, great, he's going to go to sleep and I'm going to like figure out
get off
to watch. And so I started kind of like moseying in. I've always really loved, just kind of looking and exploring. And I got into just more of this. I find black men attractive. Obviously, I was with a white man and it was not what I had at the time. And so like, that's where I was going. I was going into that section.
You're like diving right in.
Head first. And at some point he caught me, and like I don't think he was bothered that I was watching porn. I think he was bothered of what I was watching in porn and feeling just very intimidated. Then our whole relationship became about that, right? Like because like we would pass like an old black man on the street. He'd be like, oh, you want to fuck him? And I'd be like, like that bad. I have videos of it. Like I've actually showed these to my husband because I've just been such an open book with him.
I'm dying.
I have video of him being like, well, I just don't think you need to fuck black guys. And I'd be like, who said I need to, like, I'm not trying to cheat on you. I'm just like, this is something I like.
You're like, I'm interested in it. It could have been a fantasy at that point. Like,
and honestly, if I'd been happy in my marriage, like, I'll tell you right now, like, in this marriage, I'm not on Pornhub looking at white men. Like, I'm on Pornhub anymore. I've learned orgasms happen every time you have sex with a good one. Oh my God.
Who would have thought?
You can have an orgasm every time. So,
wow.
yeah, I definitely, the interracial porn thing became a big sticking point in our marriage. It was just like, and he was so bad. And like, I get weird talking about it because it is such a traumatic experience. And he was not exactly like politically correct about it either. Like, he was being incredibly racist, a lot of slurs, like a lot of really offensive stuff. I have so many texts from him that are just like absolutely the most disgusting thing on the planet. I try not to bash him because he still is my son's father, kind of, barely, with the little bit of involvement that he has. It's like, I just don't want to put myself in a situation where like, I don't even have energy anymore. It was such a
I'm dying.
like, yes. So after him, I got back out here and
in the streets.
I went and was like, I'm not dating
flag
without a blue check mark. My first I was like, I'm not dating anyone without a blue check mark. On my first date, everyone had a blue check mark.
That's hilarious. That's so funny. Way to set the bar high.
When couldn't spot, I came out here and I was like, fuck this. If I'm gonna just enjoy my life, I'm gonna go date people that I wished I could have dated. And it was a little bit of you.
Yeah. Well, yeah. No, of course it is. Because you're also like, you know, you're like, sometimes you just go from 0 to 100. You were at 0 and you're like, okay, now what do I want? I'm free. I'm single. So like, did you have that hoe phase moment, or like, were you dating around? You're like, oh yeah.
So, I mean, yeah. So the cool thing about me, and I always say this, is I really haven't slept with that many people. Like, I think for me, if I was actually going to sleep with somebody, it was somebody I was going to like be sleeping with, right? Even if I didn't think that they had like long-term potential, as long as they had enough potential, because there was just too many STDs and things out here. And I was so afraid. That was honestly the first fear of mine coming out here, is I had been with one person. I knew we had been monogamous. And I remember like being in my gyno, like every time I would leave my house, and she was like, I cannot see you anymore. And I was like, I'm afraid. I was like, I was like, my lip hurts. Like, can you get an STD from kissing? Like she was just like, please just realize that like, you're not going to die. Like, everything is fine. But there were so many horror stories, right? Like, there are a lot of STDs and stuff now. And I just didn't want to take those risks. I was so scared. And when I talked to my gynecologist about it, she was like, you'll be fine. Don't sleep around with everybody. Use a condom. If something looks funny, avoid it. I was like, okay.
She's like, trust me, it seems like you're aware enough. Like, I don't think you have to worry that hard.
Like, you know how it is. Like, you go out and like, I come from an era like where when we were younger, like you could just like make out at a party and whatever, and it was like safe. Now, if you make out at a party, you can die. Like
no, it's not Mean Girls. You're not gonna get pregnant and die.
It's literally me. I was like, you can die. You will get herpes and die. Like, I am straight up out of the first Mean Girls. But no, I was so nervous about stuff, and luckily I was able to like avoid all of that. And I really was cautious, but like, I wanted to explore. Like, I wanted to go out there. Like, I absolutely, I dated some people. Like, I did some strategic people too. Like, I really did. Like, it's so funny, the people that I know now and like that I have access to, that I really like had good relationships and stuff with. But like, the first person I really dated, slept with for a while, kind of dated, was like a pretty well-known person, and we were together for like a year or so, and I still know him and am close with him to this day. And he was really funny because when I met him, the first thing he said to me, because I had my son with me, he was like, oh, whose child is this? And I was like, this is my kid. Like, he's like, no, he's like, you like black men. He literally said it to my face. He goes, no, you like black men. And I was
like, don't let my ex hear you say that.
I was like, okay, yeah. And he's like, guys like me, I can just tell. He's like, we're like programmed to be able to tell. He's like, some of you, he's like you, he's like, you prefer black men. And I was like, okay.
You're like,
I felt
that's why I'm here.
I was like, I do. I know this about myself. But it was just funny because he kind of nicely called me out and stuff like that. And he's gorgeous, and you know, he was a wonderful guy. Like I said, he's a good person. He was a lot older than me. I mean, not a lot. He's like honestly only a little bit older than my husband is.
We love a zaddy, girl. I'm with one, so
I know you do.
He's a white zaddy, but
he's a zaddy nonetheless. And so that was
we don't age discriminate here, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
It does not matter at all.
No.
I'll tell you right now, like I said, thought orgasms didn't happen. Now I said to this day, I'm always like, tell my husband, I'm like, I just want to thank you.
I just want to thank you
for showing up.
I feel like you deserve an award.
I feel like I appreciate you. And he's just like, I think he's like, this poor girl is super traumatized. Like, honey, you should be having these every time. You are right. I do deserve an orgasm every time, my baby. But it's so funny when I think back on it. But yes, I dated him for a while, but like I was out at the club a lot, and like a lot of it was just, it was hard for him too, because I think he was very much at a point where he was older, he wanted to be home, and then at some point he was kind of like go
different phases. Yeah.
Met a younger, very problematic guy, and he was a turning point for me. And we had a very volatile, crazy relationship. Like he lives a very different life than me. Like in a lot of ways, like I still laugh about how different we were. Like I did this pattern, right? I did like the football player, and then I did maybe like a coach or two, or I did some things that were fun.
Do you feel like when you were in this phase of your life, do you feel like you learned more like sexually about yourself compared to your marriage?
Honestly, that was my favorite thing about it, is that
okay.
So I had a couple of key people that over all of those years, like leading up until when I actually met my husband, where I was with them. And part of what was so great about being with them and knowing that I would be with them at that time, each of them I was with for like an extended period. So like that was who I was sleeping with. I was like, I don't really necessarily know that this person is someone I want to be with. I'm not going to be more invested in it than they are. They've got at least the right approach. We were having fun.
Yeah.
My favorite part is they fulfilled a fantasy for me. And in all of that, like, because it wasn't something there was a lot of pressure with, and I was still trying to decide who I was, I tried it all on for size. And like, I am not ashamed about this stuff. Like, I think a lot of people want women to be so ashamed about wanting to be sexual or having sexuality or having this piece of themselves. But like, I learned so much about me in this time frame. Like, and there's so many different personalities that were at play, right? Like, so obviously the first person that I was with after my ex-husband was a black man. And it was just like, just being in that experience and like living something that I'd been fantasizing about. And, you know, just the differences of like being with another person and exploring that, and also just being treated like I was normal, like whatever it is I wanted sexually was okay and it was safe. And like, it made it so much more heightened. And like, just getting to those new levels when you finally unlock a piece of yourself where you've been kind of been told like that's not okay to explore,
or that's weird.
Yeah, it opens up another new area of myself. And like, then after him, when I dated like a younger, kind of crazier guy, like, talk about exploring fantasies, like, and what's really funny about all this is like my husband will watch this later and he knows all this stuff. Like, I've been very honest with him. Like, he's
I love that.
Oh, she's gonna tell about the toothbrush story. I am.
Yeah. And we're gonna do that right now.
This man the guy that I dated after, he was like, you're gonna brush your teeth, I'm gonna pretend I'm breaking in the house, and then we're gonna do it. And I was like,
a little CNC. I like it.
It was a blast. Like, it was fun. I'm brushing my teeth. He breaks in with the ski mask. I was like, am I turned on? And like you don't know what you like or what's fun until somebody's okay with like being like, hey, let's try this. There's plenty of things I tried where I was like, not
Not
for
for
me.
me.
Like, I
Yeah.
told you, like, I did the girl thing, and I was like, could do it, but rather not,
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's really interesting hearing you talk about your story and like how you've progressed, because I feel like normally people, well, not, I shouldn't say normal because it's not like it's not normal, but I think most people learn the most sexually about themselves when they're in long-term relationships.
Yeah.
So it's like really interesting to hear you share your story and say that that's where it wasn't working, and that throughout dating, whether these people were for 6 months or a year, but through
Yeah.
your casual dating, you were able to like explore more and understand what you really liked. Cause I know for me, it was the opposite. So like, I always say that like I've never had a serious relationship until the relationship I'm in now. So like my whole life I was casually dating is what I felt like. I knew nothing. And that was like, and part of that was my fault. I would say at least 50% of it was my fault. I didn't know enough about myself to express what I wanted like from a partner. But then again, I didn't feel safe and all of those other things too. And then since being in this healthy, secure relationship, it is like flipping a switch. Like literally like fully stepping into like our intimacy and what we like and feeling comfortable doing so. And so yeah, I think it's really cool because your story is almost different. I think most people would say like casually dating has been difficult or sucked, or, and I'm not taking that away from
No,
you because maybe it has.
I would never ever go back to it. Like
Yeah.
the idea of dating again sounds like the worst thing in the world. I just appreciate
Seems scary.
the role they played, because a lot of it is because it brought me to who I have now. That's
Yeah.
really what it is. Like Darian in every way is like everything that I wanted. He was my fantasy. He was everything I was searching for and trying to mold together in all these other people. And so I'm like, as much as it was traumatizing, trust me, like casual dating is traumatizing. Like I was not necessarily having great sex then. I was having educational sex, or I was exploring something about myself. Like, whether it be like, am I a dominant? Like, am I somebody who wants to dominate somebody? Am I submissive?
Yeah.
Do I like kinks? Do I like role play? Do I like this stuff? Like, who am I? And not feeling nervous to explore that with someone new if it came up, or if I wanted to just lead with it, because there was no pressure, right? Like, after somebody boxes you in and makes you feel so ashamed of who you are, like kind of finding a place where you're like, I don't really care what this person, like, there's no pressure to be anything. When I finally met Darian, like, although I was very comfortable in who I am, I was definitely a lot more nervous about how I approached sex and sexuality. And it took more building up to like my needs, because I cared more about how he was receiving it, or how like it mattered to me. And that's the difference, I think, for me, is like when I actually care about somebody, like it's not that there's this pressure to be anyone else. And that's, I think, the great part about the relationship I'm in, is like he allowed me to grow into whatever it is I wanted. Like he will always give that to me. I could ask my husband for anything right now and that man would give it to me. I'd be like, we're going to put this in and we're going to do this and I'm going to hang from the ceiling. And he'd be like, yeah, I mean, if you want to try that, just let's do it. It's hooked in, right? Like he'd be down. And like, that's awesome. And then to be able to like do that and like have somebody like literally
catch you if you fall.
Every
pun intended.
See piece of you, right? In like the realest way, like your every facet of you, your body, your soul, like, and know they love it. They love every piece of you. Like that is such an awesome feeling. And when I was more casually dating, it was the gratification of watching people want me, right? Just like that desire, that like this person was like just desiring me after coming from such a toxic person who was like just
gonna have to watch it to find out what you said. I don't know what to tell you, people.
It was not good. So anyway, we'll just leave it at that. But yes, of course, like, and it's funny because I know a lot of people judge, like I said, I have people now in my current life that aren't familiar maybe with like all of that side of things. I'm like, there's a lot of judgment around women dating. Like, and I think it's lousy because we're sexual too. I am perfectly fine with how I explored my sexuality. I feel really good about the fact that I was able to do so in so many spaces, like and learn hard lessons, right? Have a toxic
Yeah.
relationship, have some of that stuff that like helped kind of remove some of the last remnants of naivete that I had that really I needed to do so in order to strengthen me, and then put me in enough of a place where like I really got tired of casually dating. Like I was ready for Darian. And I
Yeah.
honestly didn't know he was going to come. Like I reached a point where I was
Oh,
like, I don't want
it's
this
such a cliche, but it's like, it's so true. It's like when you
right
stop
time.
looking is when they find you.
I know.
Yeah, I think I really resonate with what you said, and I hope the people, like everybody listening, kind of understands it on a deeper level of kind of reiterating what you said about living these dating experiences, and even though they didn't work out, there's lessons to learn from them. And I think if you continue to find yourself in the same experience, sometimes you have to take that harder look inwards and be like, what is it about me that keeps picking the same type of person? Because
100%.
if you keep picking the person that and you're going through the same cycle, you're never going to get out to the light of the tunnel. You're not going to find that person that makes you feel so whole in every area of your life. And that's what I hear you saying. And I think that like it's so beautiful because it really is like a full circle moment. And I think that's what most people want. Like you want to feel secure. You want to be with a partner that's going to support you and let you hang from the ceiling while you have sex. You know what I mean? Or whatever it
Yes.
is.
No, exactly. And then, and you know, I think I think the best thing about all of this is that I really feel like I ended up where I needed to. And my journey doesn't have to be everyone else's, right? Like some people are going to do it right the first time. Like I have
Yeah.
friends, like they just found the right person and good for them. And
Yeah.
I have some people who are just not at a point where they want to explore those things, or they that's just not maybe where their mind is at, right? Like people have different thresholds of sexuality and curiosity, and like it's okay to kind of be okay with whatever it is that you currently have too. Like
Hmm.
you don't have to be some sex, expert or sexpert, in order to
Yes.
be enjoying whatever it is that works for you. Like I have people that I know that they like a bland sex life and they feel very fulfilled by that. And like that's what they're comfortable with. And like if that suits them, that suits them. And
Yeah.
I never ever try and push like my approach on anyone. Like I don't think this is the way. This is just
Right.
how I figured it out.
Yeah. No, I love that. I think before we wrap things up really quick, I do just want to kind of end it on one solid piece of advice. I mean, we're going to do a little game, but before that. So, what's advice that you could give to women, men, anyone listening to help them become the more fuller versions of themselves? If there's one thing that you could say
I
to
think
kind of
I think we've done enough of this on the show that it kind of comes down to some of the points that I've already made previously. And I really do believe this. Ultimately, you need to look at yourself and decide, are you happy? Like, do you feel like you show up as the person you are? Do you spend a lot of time having private conversations with yourself about who you want to be? And if you have to wake up every morning and you have to show up and you have to do all of these things, like, wouldn't you want to wake up as your most authentic self and find whoever your people are? And to me, there's nothing better than living like true authenticity, true transparency, because you won't be for everyone, but the people that you're for, they'll be for you. And there's so much
yes,
satisfaction and happiness in that. Like I even just like I said, you know, my partner knows everything about me. If he's asked, I've told him. If I've talked about it, he knows. Like I've never left anything off the table. And I have a lot of pride and like there's a certain peace in that, right? Of being able to go, this
totally.
person knows every facet of me, have
And
hidden
it's not being used against you in
hate
any way
against me
either.
anyway.
Yeah.
And that's how it should feel. And the people in my life, that's what I want to. And I don't want to have to apologize for who I am. I
Yeah.
know I'm
Straight
a good
up.
person. I know I have good intentions and it's okay to be whatever that is. Now, don't use that as a scapegoat for hiding things that you need to heal because there's sometimes where
Yeah.
people go like, "Oh, well, this is just who I am." And I'm like, "No, you need therapy. That's different. That's know the difference." But ultimately, show up as your most authentic self. You will find your people. You will feel so much more at peace when you do so. Like that is 100% my advice to you.
I love that. Way to end it. Okay, before you leave us, I want to play a little game on our way out. It's titled Are You Still Talking? I haven't done this segment in a while. So basically it's kind of like a mash-up between like this or that, would you rather,
Okay.
kind of some rapid fire questions. So before I start, do you remember that trend that it was like he's a 10, but
He's a 10, but yes.
okay, do you know what I'm talking about? Okay, because I've done this with some people and I have to explain and they don't get it. So, okay. Oh my God. Leo, sorry, my cat is like all.
I was like,
I know.
meowing.
He's. I was just trying to go with it. I'm like, there's no stopping him.
Like,
okay.
while we're talking about all this stuff, you're like, meow, meow. I'm like that too.
I'm done. Okay. Are you still talking? What is something you wish more people knew about you?
I think for people who don't actually know me, I think the thing that I wish that more people knew about me is that I am like a total nerd. Like I am a full-blown nerd. I am a complete dork. I took algebra 2 in 8th grade. I took calculus electively because I enjoyed it. I didn't have
Oh
to
my
do
God.
any math in college because I finished all of my math in high school.
Okay.
I graduated a year early from high school, a year early from college. Like I am a dork, like a full-blown nerdy girl all under this. And I love intellectual conversations. I read like sapiosexual, like full-blown, like all that stuff is me. And yeah, I think people who meet me, they pick up on it very quickly. They're like, oh, she's just a dork with like lots of like stuff going on, so she doesn't look like a dork. I'm like, yes.
Okay. Confidence in your day-to-day or be confident in the bedroom if you had to pick one?
Confidence in day to day. It's more profitable, and I'm always going to go where money is. Like I'd honestly rather somebody would still like me. I'd just be laying there like, oh, I'm nervous. I'm cute.
Yeah.
Like
no, that's
I
true.
feel confidence in life all the time.
Okay. He's a 10, but he doesn't have custody of his kids.
Ooh, what am I supposed to say about that? It's terrible.
So it's like a new rating. So what would his rating be?
No. Okay, so here's the thing though. It doesn't have custody like at all. Like doesn't even get visitation. Like that's
we'll say visitation. Yeah.
Okay, if he gets visitation, I mean that happens to even the best of men. Like my husband is a wonderful father and like you have to split it, right? Like
yeah.
But yeah, like men who are just like not involved. Although I prefer it, like if you're going to be a shitty parent, just don't be a parent because being a partial parent is so much more confusing.
Disruptive.
Because I get the therapy bills for dealing with that. But I really honestly am just like either be a good parent or don't be a parent at all. Like there is no in between. And the people who don't be a parent, like you're a terrible human, but also like please.
Yeah.
0.
Please, sincerely fuck up. Morning sex or late night?
I like late night. I've never been great at the morning thing. Like I do it obviously, but like the whole like wake up, you're like, just woke up. We're both like kind of sweaty in places.
Sleep in your eyes. Hair looks like.
So you're doing like the this version where you're like both on your sides. You don't read each other's faces, and you're like, yeah, and then you actually turn over and you're like, oh no. Like, and they're like, I can't even see because I don't have my contacts in. I'm like, is that good?
Yeah, I get that. I actually have found more recently that I'm more turned on during the day than I am during the morning or night, which is
like, how's now for you? He's like, it's terrible. We have 5 kids and they're all awake.
Yeah, like, I know, literally.
Good point. Let's see if one of them can watch the baby. Yeah, no, it doesn't.
Yeah, I agree. It's annoying. Okay, define dating. Like, what is dating to you? What does the word mean?
Dating to me, you know, this is a good one because to me, dating was we were consistently seeing each other and kind of we're choosing to exclusively see each other. I think other people look at dating like you're allowed to be seeing other people. When I was dating someone, like if I was sleeping with someone dating them, we were seeing each other exclusively. It may not be long term. We might not have an official idea of where it's going, but like that's what we were doing.
I love that. I think I've asked this question, the episode that I just dropped today, it was the EDC interview episode. And I went to EDC, I did rapid fire questions. And this was one of my questions just to see like comparatively how different the word is defined between all people.
Oh, yeah.
So I love that. I just love the answers because it is also different.
Yeah.
Okay. He's a 4, but he prioritizes your pleasure in the bedroom.
Oof. Yeah, he's not really a 4 then. He's like, well, a 4. No, let me think about this. A 4 who prioritizes my pleasure. Honestly though, when I actually look back on the people I've dated, like I don't really care about looks. I care about.
You're like, they were all 4s. No.
No, honestly, like visually, I was like, some of these guys, like, they were good looking guys, but like some of them, like I dated this one guy who was like super skinny and like definitely like, I mean, he was cute, but like when you looked at his body type, he looked like a very skinny, like almost like a skeleton in a biology class. Like the idea of sleeping with that, not good, but prioritized pleasure he was kind of looking like an 8.
Okay.
With all the prioritization. So like 4 and 8.
Okay, last question. Give a sex tip for the men.
Oh, sex tip for the men. Ooh, this is good. Okay. Women, how you did something to the last girl you think enjoyed what you were doing, it cannot be done the exact same way to the new woman that you're doing it with.
I love that. It
gets in my head all the time when I was like hooking up with someone. I'd be like, some bitch must have told this guy that this was a good idea and this finger blasting situation is not working for me. My clit is on fire.
Oh no,
like,
it's raw. There's no.
You know what I mean? You know what I mean? I'm like, what's going on here? Like I had a situation like that where I was like, it was like, I was like, what's happening? But some girl falsely probably
she gave that fake O.
Can't give them the fake O1. That's the advice for the women. Quit faking orgasms and confusing men into bad techniques.
Yes.
And whatever you did to the last girl, figure out how to do it the right way for the new girl. Don't just replicate that strategy because it didn't work.
Yep. No vagina is the same either.
No vagina is the same.
Let's just end it right there. I love that. Before we go, I would love for you to tell all the listeners, like, what do you have going on right now? Where can they find you?
So you can find me, Instagram's the easiest way to find me, TikTok too. It's M3RRYN.
Okay, I'll put it in I'll put your link in the bio and everything.
Yeah,
also.
It's basically Hayden Merryn, and the 3s are where the E's are. I had to do that. My name was taken by my ex-husband's family. They went on there and quickly grabbed it. Talk about
oh my god, that's so annoying. Are you serious?
Still own it. So
Leo,
but built a brand anyway. So that's where you can find me. That's the easiest way, just to connect from a social perspective, since this is just like the fun stuff. And I always like to be sharing like real things about life, and this is kind of what
your stories are awesome. Like it's everything from like kids, mom, business, but then also she's a screenshot queen, so you get some very opinionated conversations going on your Instagram stories, which I love.
I try.
Yeah, you do so good. So good.
Appreciate you. Thank you so much for having me on. I really, really had fun.
Yeah, good. I'm so glad you came on. I know it was like a long time coming, and I appreciate you taking the time to, share some wise words. It was really fun.
Different for me too. Like you did a good job. We got to talk about completely different topics that I feel like a lot of people ask me the same things about my life, and like this is fun because we got to talk about like some new things that people probably didn't know about me.
Are you still talking? Girl, stop talking.